Hey, how's everyone doing out there? Welcome to a Word Hole Media presentation of Major League A-Holes. I'm Pete.
Ryan, you are in the hole with Major League A-Holes. I believe this is episode 159. I forgot to look that up before we got on the air here. Yeah, we're getting up there. We are 1 week into March, inching ever closer to at least Cubs opening day in 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah.
That's kind of amazing. That's so soon. It's causing some issues, I think, with the Cubs I'll briefly get into. Big story this week, of course, is your White Sox may or may not have a new majority owner in the near future. We'll discuss that. Got a little bit of Tigers injury, unfortunate injury news, a little disturbing injury news I want to talk about. We've got our asshole of the week is going to come from, of course, the now Sacramento A's. This might be a regular theme. I might just rename the entire asshole of the week after the A's at this point. But we've got a little bit of general Major League Baseball news with the advent of the robo-ump in spring training. Our robot overlords have arrived. Major League Baseball and ESPN have finalized a divorce after 35 years, which is kind of concerning, potentially for both parties. And we've got a very different aesthetics compared to what we typically do, but I'll explain later. But that's how we'll wrap up the show. So I guess without further ado, we might as well go ahead and jump into the news.
How about those White Sox back at the top of the podcast where they belong? Whether
We can't
they're
quit
good,
you.
bad, or whatever, there's always a story. And the latest story is Jerry Reinsdorf made a phone call to a minority White Sox owner, Justin, what is it, Ishbia?
It's Ishbia.
Ishbia, Michigan State grad.
I believe that, by the way, Ishbia loosely translates to Southside Messiah.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see. I think if we had done this podcast last week like we were trying to do, except I became sick, I would be more excited than I am today. And part of the reason I'm not excited today is the deadline to process everything passed on February 28th, and it's now March 5th, and we haven't heard a thing.
I think that I've heard that same date as well. I don't think the White Sox have any responsibility to report anything about their ownership, that decision. It's all very insular. It's kind of amazing how John Greenberg from The Athletic got any information about this story last week. So I guess I wouldn't be too surprised that there's not concrete information, because it's literally just that group of, I've heard it's 33, minimum of 33 minority owners of the White Sox to close to 100. And it's just up to them whether they want to talk to the media or not. There's nothing in the Major League Baseball bylaws that says they have to talk to tell those results of how that's going to work. So don't let that bum you out.
All right, I'm not going to let it bum me out, but it is the fact that no insider has leaked anything that the transaction went through is a little bit concerning to me, because they have to approve it at the end of the day. They don't have to sell to him. They could keep things the way they are. So
yeah, I think it's pretty clear what they gave him the offer. The key reason I think it's pretty clear this is happening is he backed out of a deal to buy the fucking Minnesota Twins.
Well, I know.
When they're at the 1 yard line, apparently they thought the Twins are completely blindsided by this. They were ready to announce before opening day that they had a new owner in Justin Ishbia, and he is now going to be at least increase his stake in the White Sox. With, it seems obvious, connecting the dots, that he will become the majority owner at some point.
Yeah, and I agree. I think that is why Reinsdorf reached out to him personally. The dude's 47 years old. He's fucking younger than me and you.
Yeah. Oh, that's crazy. I never even thought about that.
He
might be in a little bit different tax bracket than you and I.
A slightly different tax bracket.
Other than that,
I mean, news to White Sox fans: he's building a house in Winnetka that's bigger than Tom Ricketts. So fuck you, Cubs. His house is bigger. His house is bigger than Ricketts.
Well, the best stat about that I'll repeat for the billionth time, I've heard this all over the place, but it's an $80 million compound that he's building in Winnetka.
That's right.
$80 million would be more than any White Sox contract in history.
That's
So
true.
that's another example of how not only is he beyond your and my tax bracket, he's way beyond Jerry Reinsdorf's tax bracket as well. I think he's worth something like $5 billion. I know his brother, Matt Ishbia, the owner of the Phoenix Suns, I think he's worth 11 million or 11 billion. And his father's worth who knows how much. But I'm more aware of the Ishbias than you might possibly be, just because they're from Detroit. They're both Michigan State Spartan grads. Matt Ishbia has been, he's been in the news for years with the Spartans. He was actually a walk-on backup point guard for the 2000 national championship team Spartans. So his name's been around, but you might remember when Mel Tucker, the dumb motherfucker, former football coach at Michigan State, when he signed his $100 million deal, Matt Ishbia was one of the key donors to
Oh,
foot the
that's
bill for
right. He
that.
was. Yeah, that's
I
right.
don't know if Justin necessarily was involved in that. I wouldn't be surprised if he was. But so yeah, the Ishbias are a little more well known around Michigan here. But yeah, you're definitely going to be able to get to know those guys a lot more there in Chicago.
Yeah, I feel like the White Sox lines up a lot nicer for him than the Twins in that he's building here. Also, with the Twins, he takes control of the team. He would have been taking control of the team this year before the next collective bargaining agreement. I think for the White Sox, what it allows him to do is know that he's the heir apparent to take over the team, and he can probably deal with taking it over after the collective bargaining agreement is done and not have to deal with that mess as an owner, which is probably a little bit more attractive, to be
Yeah,
honest.
it sucks. The collective bargaining agreement has been in the news so much. We're still 2 years away from its expiration date, which everyone is pointing to that being Armageddon. As bad as this past negotiations were, and ended up only missing a week of the season. There's dire projections saying we're going to miss the 2027 season potentially. So it just, you and I covered that ad nauseum, so we've kind of known about it for a long time. I don't like talking about it. I certainly don't like seeing it in the news so much right now, especially 2 years before it's actually going to come to fruition. But it sucks. But yeah, that's a good theory. He would want some more certainty before he takes full control of the team, as opposed to how he'd have to take over the Twins immediately. My favorite thing about this being impartial, I don't like the White Sox or the Twins. I think it works out well for you, but I think it's a kick to the nuts of the Twins,
Oh,
whose
yeah.
whole plan up until last week apparently was they were going to have a new owner that was going to spending a very wealthy owner that they have not enjoyed. That was going to take care of all their problems and potentially soon would change how their budget works. They're in the midst of a TV issue, as many of the teams across the majors are. They're losing revenue from their cable provider. I think this would have been a godsend if they had Ishbia take over for them, and that was going to boost their budget back. They've had to make cuts on their roster because of this. So I just like that it kind of fucks over the Twins as much as anything. I think it's going to be great news for you White Sox fans. Like we were saying, you've been saddled with the cheap owner Jerry Reinsdorf all these years. Well, you've got a potentially a billionaire hobbyist that just wants to be a baseball owner, and he certainly has close ties to Chicago, even though he's from Detroit. Uh, he literally chose you guys over the Twins. He wants to be the owner of the White Sox, and I think this changes the dynamic of everything, including the stadium proposal or potentially fanciful stadium proposal on the 78. Or I've even heard they might consider rebuilding in Bridgeport. So it opens up a ton of possibilities when you have a rich owner, and I like that it fucks over a division rival.
It also is nice that the owner will be uh, 47 years old, possibly close to 50 when he takes over, compared to Jerry Reinsdorf would be 91 at that point, as he just turned 89. Now, a little funny note, that at least something I found fucking amusing, which I hadn't heard until the breaking of this story, was the age of the White Sox board, which is
I heard
fucking
this.
insane. Let's start with this. The youngest member is 76.
I heard that last week. I couldn't believe it.
The oldest
The
member
youngest.
Lee Stern, is 98. He's 98.
Can you imagine what those board meetings look like? I just keep thinking of the Kansas City, the bosses of the five families meeting in Kansas City at the end of Casino, like deciding everyone's fate. Just the geriatric bosses with like oxygen tanks next to their wheelchairs, just all meeting in smoke-filled rooms.
Yeah, I mean,
oh my God.
The meals, cottage cheese and peaches, because that's all they can eat.
Oh my God.
So hopefully when some news about the completion of this comes out, we'll be hearing that Ishbia is on the board now, which would then make him half the age of the oldest member and 30 years younger than the youngest member. Are you fucking kidding me? No wonder the Sox are this shape they're in.
Oh
no
my
wonder.
God.
Like when I can't even. That almost, like, I was like, this is a joke, right? It's a typo. It is no wonder the decisions have been made the way they are. It's just Jerry with a bunch of guys who've been there forever, and they're just like, oh, am I getting a check? Okay, good. End of story.
It's amazing that all that's true, the age of the board. But the other part that's amazing is that secret was revealed last week. Like, no one knew any of that until last week. It's like,
I know.
What a bizarre insular situation. It just sort of sheds light on everything that's been going on for the last 40 fucking years.
It's unbelievable. Couple other White Sox tidbits. Great news, as always. Benintendi, he's injured, out 6 to 8 weeks. Not from
one name I do recognize from your roster.
Not from running to first, but for getting drilled in the hand with a fastball. Hey, it happens. Accidents happen. They always seem to happen to the White Sox. So, he's not. It just is so reminiscent of all the problems that follow them. So anyway, he's out 6 to 8 weeks. So we'll see if he's back by mid-April or so, maybe end of April. And then really in the biggest announcement before we get to the game show that's taking Chicago by storm, just announced Friday night, June 27th, after the Sox play, are you ready for this? The San Francisco Giants. It's all coming up, Pete, right now. Flo Rida is playing a concert post-game. Now, will he really play the show? I don't know, because we had that whole incident where the concert never occurred last season, because was that the Gunt incident?
Well, that was going to be my potential asshole question for you.
Yes.
First of all, maybe a series of asshole questions. First of all, have they ever solved that mystery where did the gunshots come from inside the ballpark or outside of the ballpark?
It turns out it came from inside her vagina.
They still have a crime lab working on it in shifts.
Yeah, everyone's on it. Dexter's still doing the spray analysis, and
how is
LaGuardia is on the case.
So another question is, how is the city of Chicago allowing another concert to happen at Sox Park when this investigation is still open? No one has any idea where the bullets came from.
I don't know, but it's Flo Rida, and my kids are excited.
Well, that's my third question. Is Flo Rida the worst?
Flo Rida.
Is that the worst rap name in history? Or like that's just...
Well, he's from Florida. He's playing off of Florida. Flo Rida.
He just accidentally hit the space bar after the O and before the R. I'm like, shit, that's my name.
I'm not Florida. I'm Flo Rida.
Well, obviously it's not meant for my demographic. I have no idea what Flo Rida is. I've heard of him. I don't know what his songs are. I just find it ironic that they're having another show with this investigation still going on. So, well, I don't even who was. It wasn't Flo Rida that was supposed to play during that.
No, it's Vanilla Ice, right?
Vanilla Ice. Okay, I have
Yeah.
heard of Vanilla Ice. I'm surprised he's still around. Well, hopefully everything goes off without it. You are going?
This is a one booked White Sox game I'm gonna have for sure.
Here's a series of more Ask Cole questions. Then, do you have a bulletproof vest for you? Do you have child-sized bulletproof vests for your children?
We have Kevlar blanket. We will be bringing.
Okay, that's a good strategy. I like that.
Although it's June 27th, so probably won't need a blanket. But
yeah, well, you have stepped up your security measures there since you did a couple segments on that.
Yeah,
after the fact, so. Sounds like it should be a safe place to go. And to be fair, I have set foot in the ballpark after that incident as well. Felt very safe. So it's all in good fun. But yeah, I saw the same announcement you did with Flo Rida and thought, that's interesting.
Everyone's excited at the Veneri house. So
what do you know any of his songs? Like,
yeah,
like a title or
yeah,
can you rap them for us?
No, you don't want that. But his big one is it goes like "Welcome to my house."
Oh, you did
it. Something like that. I don't know. I don't remember. It was huge. It was a huge hit, though.
Is Ludacris? Is Ludacris a worse rap name?
I don't know. Is it?
Maybe it's maybe these are the best rap names, and I just don't know.
Maybe you don't know.
I don't know.
Maybe you don't know Q-Tip. Okay.
I love Q-Tip. Oh man.
See, there you go.
Good call.
All right. Are you ready?
Oh, should we transition over to the second edition of Chicago's favorite game show, Chicago White Sox or Chicago Alderman?
That's right. Everybody, are you ready for Chicago White Sox player or Chicago Alderman Part 2?
So the nameless, faceless White Sox roster became a subject of ire and humor last episode. So we just built a game show around, see if I could decide. You'd give me a list of names, and I would see if I could figure out if they were a White Sox player or a Chicago Alderman, because I don't know anything about Chicago Alderman either. So I did pretty well actually last week. I think I got 5 out of 8.
5 out of 8.
Most of which were just coin tosses, but I had some. I knew a couple of them. I think you've had time. We made that game up 15 minutes before we went on the air last show, so you've had some time to hone the list to trip me up. So I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah, I went ahead. I picked 5 names out, carefully selected names of Alderman and White Sox players. I went through the whole White Sox roster, so we got a little bit more than pitchers this time, but we're going to go with 5 names, keep it streamlined. Are you ready for your first name?
I'm ready. I've got the sound effects ready to go in post-production. I did all that last week.
Yeah, I won't make any verbal noises.
No, you can't. It goes right over it. It works out great. Makes us all look like idiots anyway, so.
Name number 1, Derek Curtis. Is that a White Sox player or an Alderman?
Derek feels like a name that hasn't been used. Like I had friends growing up named Derek. Seems like an older name. So I think that's an Alderman.
You are correct. You are 1 for 1.
All right. Dominate this game.
Coming up next, Frazier Ellard. Frazier Ellard. Is that a Chicago White Sox player or an Alderman?
That totally sounds like an Alderman, but I'm gonna. It's got to be an Alderman.
Alderman, your final answer?
Yeah, it's an Alderman. I was gonna jump back, but yeah, it's an Alderman. It's got to be.
That is incorrect. It is a White Sox pitcher.
I knew it.
Frazier Ellard.
They always say go with your first guess, and immediately I was going to go with my first guess, but I'm like, that's got to be wrong, and I couldn't switch off my first guess. So, shit. What's his name?
Frazier Ellard.
What is he?
He's a pitcher. I don't know if he's a starter or reliever. I think I'm reliever. Mike Rodriguez, Chicago White Sox player or Alderman?
I mean, that sounds like a Chicago White Sox?
Wrong. That is Chicago Alderman.
Okay.
That puts you at 1 for 3 right now. That's a 3.3 batting average.
You're getting better at this. I'm getting worse.
All right. Are you ready
I'm ready.
for number 4? Juan Corella, White Sox player or Chicago Alderman?
Can you spell the last name?
Carela.
Country of origin?
Juan Corella.
I'll go White Sox.
You are correct. That is the White Sox. He's at 50%.
Okay, nice.
2 for
So
4.
This is for all of it. I win or lose the game based on this last call.
All right. Take a sip there. I know you're nervous.
I'm very nervous here.
Try to keep calm. I noticed some beads of sweat. It's not that big of a deal. Nothing is writing on this, yet everything is.
I'm going to piss myself like the kind of quiz show or what. Maybe that was Magnolia.
Magnolia, I think you're thinking of.
Yeah.
The final guess, the 5th and final name, Jacob Amaya, White Sox.
Oh my God.
Or Chicago Alderman.
I mean, this is a great question. Great name to pull for the final one because, of course, Miguel Amaya is the Cubs catcher. So is this his brother or is this a Chicago Alderman? My mind is turned into a pretzel here. I could go in either direction easily. I'm going to go Chicago Alderman.
You are incorrect. You lose.
Damn.
He is a White Sox shortstop.
Oh, wow. No idea. He might be Miguel Amaya's brother, as far as we know. Cousin, potentially?
I don't know. I didn't go that deep. But there you go. So this week you got 2 for 5.
Yeah, I'm really a loser.
Knocked you off your pedestal when I got some time to work on this shit.
Yep. Well, I think that was fun. I like that we cut it down to 5 names. I don't know if we need to continue this game show going forward, or maybe you still have a list of great names like that, but I don't know. That was fun.
I think we could possibly do one more. Maybe we do it, maybe not next week. Maybe we do it some other time or something. But I think there's opportunity for at least one more based on what I was looking at.
I like it.
I mean,
we'll see what the numbers say if the people like it.
The people will love this. I heard the numbers are through the roof. I'm getting calls left and right. They want to put this on TV.
Yeah, we got to do this before the season starts if we're going to do another episode because I'll start seeing games and be at least aware of the roster. I don't plan on watching. I don't plan on watching any of your spring training games. Although, are there any on television?
Chicago. Just if you've got Chicago sports.
I do not. But, if I put up the HD rabbit ears, could I get it in mid Michigan? Or
I don't think so. I think you're out of range.
Shit, bummer. Well, if that's all we have for your Chicago White Sox to lead off the show once again, I think we could transition over to the north side of town, to the Chicago Cubs, who have a regular season game coming up. I believe it's March 18th. Today is the 5th, so we're less than 2 weeks away. Kind of amazing. It's a little bit frustrating the more I think about it. We learned about this about a year ago that they're going to be playing the 2-game series in Tokyo early before the actual season starts. It kind of puts the Cubs and the Dodgers, for that matter, in a bind in that if anyone's a little bit injured or tweak something early in spring training, they're kind of not going to be present on that for that Tokyo trip. And that's already happening with the Cubs. It's determined at least that Nico Horner will be sounds like he will be available for the regular opening day, but he's not going to make the trip to Tokyo. And there was some question then about now third base starter Matt Shaw with an oblique strain, if he was going to be able to even make the trip. And I'm not sure that's been determined yet, even though he's back and healthy and has been playing. He had 2 hits the other day, 16-run game. So they could most likely be missing the whole left side of their infield for the first 2 games of the year, just because they happen to be in Tokyo 2 weeks earlier than everybody else. It's kind of sucks. It got really nerve-wracking when Pete Crow Armstrong was pulled from a game 2 days ago before the game started with a hamstring tightness. And it's like, if we're missing our fucking center fielder and the whole left side of our infield, like what are we doing here? he was fine. He clearly was fine because he came back the next day and had a little league home run where I think they're playing the Rockies, just threw the ball all over the place on his double, and he ended up scoring. So clearly his hamstring is no longer an issue. So that may be a bullet dodge, but we might see a really strange roster for the Cubs. And I haven't paid too much attention to the Dodgers roster. They've got the whole fucking world playing for them, so I'm not too worried about their depth. But it's just an unfortunate reality with doing these what should be exhibition games in Tokyo. You're not going to see the full roster, and it's like the Cubs kind of have to punt on those games. So those guys can get their rest. They're not sitting on a 13-hour flight to Tokyo. They're not missing days of treatment or rehab or whatever they would normally be doing instead of sitting on a plane.
Right.
Um, so it's just the fact. I mean, it's marketing. Makes perfect sense to have the Cubs versus Dodgers in Tokyo as they have so many Japanese stars on their rosters. It's going to be great for Japan and for to market the game in that part of the world. But it's just the reality is it's really unfortunate for the Cubs. And do they come back 0-2? I wouldn't be surprised. They're playing the world champs anyway, so that was probably going to be likely. But they're not even go there with their full complement of players. So what can you do? I guess I'll be excited once those games begin. I haven't looked up what the time difference is. I do remember years ago getting up early to see games in Korea or Japan before. I have a feeling it's going to be like 4 or 5 in the morning to get up to watch the Cubs. I'm also in the Eastern time zone now, so that makes it better or worse. I don't know. We'll find out, but it's just going to be a strange start to the season. They come back. They come back. They put it in mid March, so they have at least 10 days. Maybe it's not quite 10 days where they can recover, get rid of the jet lag, and then they go back to spring training games, which is even stranger, and then eventually start the regular season on the 28th. So it's going to be a herky-jerky, odd start to the season. I don't think anyone's going to be too surprised if the Cubs come back in the 0-2 hole to start the season due to many circumstances. So what can you do? Cubs adjacent news I wanted to bring up was the curious potential end of career for former Cubs legend Anthony Rizzo. He is not yet signed. He is an unrestricted free agent. He is not signed with any teams. He spoke to Ken Rosenthal, The Athletic, and said he has received offers, but they're all for league minimum, which he didn't express that he was necessarily insulted by that, but he felt an obligation to other aging free agents out there not to set the market at such the ultimate low figure that would be. He thinks he should hold out not only for his own financial well-being, he should be holding out for a better deal to set the market higher for aging veterans like himself. So it's kind of he really has had 2 subpar years, mainly because of injury. He had a bizarre concussion that he received. Like he was manning first base, and on a throw over to first, whoever the runner was, like kind of they kind of like ran his hip into Rizzo's head and gave him a concussion for many months. And I'm not sure how long it took him to get to fully recover from that, but it's been a long time. Last year, he did finally come back, and then he got hit in the hand, much like Benintendi, and broke 2 knuckles and was useless for the postseason run. So it'd be kind of a sad end to Rizzo's career. He's only 35 years old. The Yankees moved on and signed Paul Goldschmidt, who's 37 years old. They feel like he's a better option at this point than Rizzo would be. I haven't seen much speculation about it, but you could have seen Rizzo come back to the Cubs. Not sure he'd be really excited about that. I believe there's a little bit of acrimony when his trade away from the organization. I don't think he was necessarily all for that. So, but now the Cubs have Justin Turner, who's 40 years old, to take that spot. So it's kind of amazing where it feels like Rizzo's kind of getting flushed out of the end of the major league timelines or whatever. I don't know what I'm saying now, but it would just suck if he literally just doesn't have a deal, even though he wants to play. He's not really wanting to retire. He's just being forced into retirement, and just maybe it's his pride, or maybe it is an altruistic notion that he wants to do good for his fellow players and not take a lowball deal. I don't know. Did you see anything about that, or you do own a Rizzo sucks T-shirt?
I
I don't know
do.
if I don't
I
know if you had
do.
thoughts about Rizzo or
I mean, honestly, like I feel like his game, and I think it was probably has been due to these concussions that have happened more frequently over the last couple seasons has really kind of diminished. So, I mean, I don't know why he would expect anything more than what he's getting offered. Uh, so, I mean, it's not the end. It's not the like end to a career you'd expect him to have, but it's just the reality of it. I think, you know.
yeah. I mean, he's a multi-time All-Star. He's a world champ, many-time Gold Glove Award winner. It would just be, I guess, it would just be a sad way to go out, just kind of being forgotten and flushed out the toilet.
Yep. Oh well.
Well, I've got similar sad injury news for my Detroit Tigers, as they've been plagued with several injuries in this preseason already. The most concerning of which is Parker Meadows, who I picked to be Rookie of the Year last year. And he got off to a horrible start and was actually sent down to AAA Toledo. He returned, though, and looked every bit the potential Rookie of the Year, potential MVP, just both offensively and defensively. He's already an elite defender in center field, but he was hitting the shit out of the ball in that second half for the Tigers. But he came down with a bizarre injury I've never heard of. He's got a nerve issue in his throwing arm where it sounds sort of like it is not his funny bone, but it's sort of that idea where how you feel when you hit your funny bone it just hurts, but then it goes numb for a bit. Well, he's like stuck in the numb phase of that. I don't think it's necessarily a pain issue, but he just doesn't have feeling in his arm. And there's been reports that there's good and bad news about that. The good news is it will come back, and it will not. That feeling will come back. It's not like a chronic injury that's going to cause him issues. When it comes back, he's going to be just fine. The problem is, it's as likely that the feeling comes back this second or 6 weeks from now. There's no way to know when that feeling will come back. It could be anytime. So in the meantime, he's just shelved and not playing. I think this is like the first game of spring training where he had the issue. So that's a really disturbing thing for the Tigers, who he was going to be our leadoff hitter. Of course, Manning center field, which is a huge deal in the cavernous Comerica Park. It'd be a big blow if he doesn't get that feeling back soon. His availability for opening day is in jeopardy. Even though when he does eventually come back, he can get right. There's no rehab or anything he needs to do to it. It's just he starts playing again. But we just don't know when that's going to happen. Add that to the injury of Matt Verling, who was potentially going to be our third baseman, also be in the outfield. It's just like the first week of spring training has just been tough for the Tigers, who have reason for optimism, but as much as these injuries come along, it's frustrating to see how this could get derailed quickly. I don't think we have any Giants news, so I'm kind of I'm monopolizing this whole conversation so far, from a dialogue to a monologue. But
Well, I don't. I mean, I got no insight on your Tiger situation there, so it's not making it to Chicago here. The Tigers injuries, so. But I can get involved in the next conversation and the conversations in the next 3 segments. So
awesome. Well, we will move to our flagship asshole of the week, as the Oakland A's once again. Oh, I'm sorry, the Sacramento A's, or more specifically, the West Sacramento A's, step up to the plate once again and earn our asshole of the week dishonor. Uh, I got an email. I'm still in their mailing list. Got an email this week that you're pulling up over there on your phone. We can read an offer to be one of the first to get in line for season tickets for the potential Las Vegas A's, which I want to mention first. There has not been an agreement about from Nevada taxpayers, what they're going to actually pay for this stadium. There's not a shovel in the ground. There's nothing official that says this Las Vegas team is actually going to come to fruition yet. Meanwhile, the A's are sending out this opportunity to get involved in their season tickets to be the first to be in Las Vegas. So, did you got the email over there? Do you
I
have
do.
the
I'm
the
ready to
subject
go.
line and the body content there?
Secure your spot, Vegas 2028.
Yeah, I would put a question mark after that subject line immediately. I don't
Um,
think there's anything secure about that.
Dear Ryan, starting this Friday, March 7th at 9 a.m. Pacific time, you can secure your spot to get priority access to buy season tickets at the A's new ballpark in Las Vegas. All for
Now
just
we've all seen this before. Like this isn't shocking or anything that's strange about that. I've been on the season ticket waiting list for the Cubs. Apparently, you were at one point. You got on their mailing list. I don't know if you how it worked. I know you had White Sox season tickets. I don't know how that worked. If you had to sign up for a list or if you could just buy them at the time, but
you could just buy them.
this is a kind of a unique situation. I understand that. So if you want to get on the waiting list, I think that's fine. I'll just add my email to whatever if I was really interested. But that's not exactly what they're offering. I think the next sentence explains why they are assholes of the week.
All for just $19.01.
Now this is funny on a couple levels. The idea that you're just getting on a waiting list, I am paying them for the privilege of being on a list, which I've never heard of this. Maybe this is common practice. Have you ever heard of this?
Not for no, not really. I mean, I know like from work, like residential properties, like there's waiting lists. Like you might make $1,000 deposit if you're moving into like a senior living community or something like that. That's a
That
familiar
means
thing I'm aware of.
I can
But
see that. That's if the demand is out far
yeah, right.
exceeds the supply, and then I could see why you'd want to pay for that privilege. But how do they think there is that kind of demand that's going to outpace the supply that they can actually charge 1901, which is hilarious. They don't want to charge $20. They want to charge 1901 because I believe it's the beginning of the American League, so it would have been the founding of the Philadelphia A's over a century ago. So I think that's what they're trying to tie into their rich history. But I just find it farcical. I find it offensive, number one, that they're charging money for this list, and it's farcical that who's paying for that? Like what does that demand look like? I know it's not people in Oakland. Is it people in Sacramento? I doubt that. Is it really the transient population of Las Vegas? Are they dying to get those tickets? Especially when a fucking stadium isn't a very popular idea to be paid for by taxpayer money. I thought it was crazy. But is there more interesting parts of that email they
Well,
sent?
let's see if it's interesting. But let's go. Okay, we got by joining the priority list at athletics.com/Vegas, you will get an early opportunity to grab your tickets before they go on sale to the public. This is the part I find interesting. Now, they obviously don't have a current mailing address on you, I guess, but it says if you're a current A season ticket member, an Aviator season ticket holder, or a Clark County resident, you'll have purchase priority over the general fan once you join the list. So
So
I guess
there's a
they will. Okay, I didn't see that part. So they'll run your name
yeah.
once you join the list. So you can
So there's a
spend.
list.
Sorry, go
Yeah,
ahead.
there's a list within the list. So
Yes.
everybody can spend 1901, but that doesn't put you at the front of the line. That's the front of the line is for uh, Vegas residents or aviators. Well,
Yes. An
current,
Aviator season ticket holder.
yeah, aviators are the AAA Las Vegas team there.
Okay.
I only know that because I've designed menu boards for them as part of my job. So that is a really beautiful AAA stadium. Far better than the Sacramento stadium that the A's will be playing in, which is funny. That's like a 15,000 seats stadium there. So I could see potentially, yeah, if they've got a large season ticket holder base, that if they're interested in AAA baseball, I guess they would be really interested in Major League Baseball. So that those I could see how those people might be willing and might be very interested in becoming season ticket holders to the point where they would pay $19.01 to do it. But
So is it? So wait, just help me out. So it was 1901 when they were founded, or
yeah,
something.
that's my theory. Just because that's the start of that's when the American League started, and I believe that's when the Philadelphia A's started, along with the White Sox and Tigers,
Okay.
like an original six thing,
The rest of it's typical.
boilerplate.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
don't
fine.
wait, secure your spot. The other thing about it that kind of makes me laugh is like it's this big, it's like a big deal, right? But like it's just like athletics.com/Vegas. It doesn't like I'm gonna go to it to even see what it looks like. Like it just doesn't.
Oh, it's got lots of fancy renderings.
Oh, it
That
does. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same ones I went over. We did segments about it
Oh yeah, I've
last year,
seen
but
those renderings. Yeah.
yeah, that are farcical as well. The budget, the size of stadium that they were proposing versus the actual site, it doesn't really match up. We poked holes all through that, but also they're doing this 3 years before they're even going to be there. So I just, it just, everything about the A's is disgusting and how they moved out of Oakland, and this is just another example. So it just was a easy slam dunk asshole of the week.
Yeah, I mean, I think you summed it up best when you were like, normally you pay for a waiting list because there's some sort of high demand, but
Yeah.
I mean, there is nothing. There's nothing to say that a current A's ticket. I don't think there is a current A's season ticket holder that will be converting when they are officially moved in there. I could see the Aviators, like you said, right? I could see that,
That's
but
a
why would?
hardcore baseball fan right there. If you're an Aviators season ticket
Yeah,
holder, yeah, that I could see them being fired up about it. But
and is Clark County
that's
in
got to be
is
Las
Vegas? That's
Vegas.
Vegas, right?
Yeah, that's got to be Vegas County. So
Yeah, I just it just again, it's just dirty. It's just like
yeah,
it's just shady. It's like although I'm not paying any. The Cubs had a waiting list that never looked like it was going to evaporate, but now we found out that it did.
yeah, it certainly
But
has.
but now that would make sense if you wanted to charge someone to go on it to secure a spot
I
because it
can
would
tell you
all
the Cubs didn't charge me to be on it, so
right.
I mean, and then when my time came, I did get the call. I wasn't willing to be a season ticket holder. I think that was 2012, like the first year of the Theo regime. Uh, I just, I don't know. I could almost see how it would make more sense for the Cubs to charge.
Yes.
Maybe it'd be 1876 for their founding or whatever their charge. But that would be a little bit less offensive. But just the whole way this has played out, and then for the A's to charge you for the privilege to be on the waiting list is just an added level.
Yeah. What a bunch of jagbags.
I think this is going to continue. I mean, there's going to be little incidents. I'm going to stay on the mailing list for little tidbits like this. I'm sure they're going to do more things throughout the season. I can't wait for the first games in Sacramento as they play 3 full years in a AAA stadium. See how that plays out. It's actually going to have fantasy implications because I'm not sure. I mean, it's not going to be a tiny, it'll be a small capacity. I don't know what the dimensions of that field are compared to the Oakland Coliseum. Maybe Brent Rooker is going to have even bigger numbers playing in a AAA stadium. He might
I'm
be
keeping them.
he might be a first round draft pick in our league this year. Smell the
I,
glove. We changed
I
the name of the leagues to Smell the Glove.
I'm just keeping them. What do you mean? He's not even going back in the pool.
Oh yeah, are we starting a keeper league all of a sudden? I think we needed to vote on this last year if we were doing that, but
Oh, vote schmote.
might make you the asshole of the week for even
That's
proposing that.
right.
Well, I think we can transition over to general Major League Baseball news. We've got a lot to talk about in this first couple weeks of spring training. The biggest news is the advent of robo umpires. Our robot overlords have finally taken over. We have an automated balls and strikes system that has been implemented throughout the minors for several years now. They're trying this out in Major League Baseball just in spring training. This is not going to happen into the regular season. They're testing it in spring training, which that's also an interesting way to implement it. I understand why they would do this only in spring training as a test and not just say we're going to have this in the majors right away. But it also, they're basically, Major League Baseball is asking the teams to do them a favor and use this system and either challenge balls and strikes or not. In fact, Terry Francona has told his Cincinnati Reds players not to challenge anything because it's not going to be implemented in the season. It doesn't do them any good to waste time thinking about it or maybe growing accustomed to it because it's not going to happen this year. So I kind of like that act of defiance by Francona, saying "fuck you, you're implementing this thing, but it's not real. So why would we bother doing you a favor?" Uh, it it started. You and I were watching. Was it Dodgers Cubs game 1 of spring
Yeah,
training?
yeah.
Yeah, it happened to be on MLB Network, so you and I were both watching it. And you had some questions about it right off the bat because it was confusing how they did it.
Yeah, I mean, my question right off the bat was, well, one, I think I was out of the room, but when they were talking about the fact that they were actually doing it, which I was sitting there going, are they using RoboUmp or not? Are they using RoboUmp or not? And I must have just stepped out of the room. Then it happened, and
Yeah, it was Cody Poteet, who was
yes,
famously brought to the Cubs in the infamous Cody Bellinger trade. He's the first major league player to challenge a call in this new ABS RoboUmp system. That's the part that probably wasn't explained very well, or I didn't explain it very well. I don't think Major League Baseball necessarily explained it very well. It is not a fully implemented automated balls and strikes calls. The umpire is not getting a signal telling him whether to call a ball or a strike. He's Umpires are calling balls and strikes like they always have. It's just every pitch is being monitored by this ABS system, and if a pitcher, catcher, or batter wants to challenge the umpire's call, they can do so. They can do so infinitely if they get it right. But if you get 2 wrong, your challenges are used up for the entire game then. So you were confused because you thought that the umps were being told, getting a
right,
signal in their ear or whatever, saying it was a ball or a strike. But no, it was the Poteet that decided that the ump was wrong, which is, I think it's I actually like that. It kind of limits how much exposure to this system there is, but it's still the normal game until someone decides that something egregious happened, and at least you have the opportunity to challenge it. I don't know how much you've watched of spring training since. I've watched, I've seen some Tigers games, saw a couple more Cubs games, but the thing that really perplexed me and how this is being implemented is, they actually show the fans in the stadium and as well as in the TV broadcast the actual graphic that shows the strike zone
right.
and where if the ball hit that zone or not. And there's lots of interesting things about this strike zone. It looks very different to what you and I are used to seeing on ESPN or your local broadcast. You see the K zone, whatever.
Yeah,
This is I assumed it would be a 3-dimensional zone that was like, it had the height, the depth, you know, the shape of home plate in kind of a cube almost. And if the ball crossed into that cube anywhere, it would have to be a strike. But that was a erroneous thought by myself, because if you think about it, you could throw like a softball pitch straight up in the air, have it land directly on home plate, and that would be called a strike. And that's just not what they're looking for. It needs to come through the front of the zone basically on a
right.
strike. Um, so what they've done is literally, I think it's in the center of home plate, front to back, is this where this 2-dimensional sheet basically. If the ball goes through that, it's a strike. The problem is, as we all know, the width of the strike zone is defined by the width of home plate. That's easy. The height of the zone is determined by the player's, I think they call it the crook of the knee to the letters.
Yep.
And I mean, that's where baseball is. That's where the human element has come in. Is you rarely see a letter high fastball get called as a strike. It's usually around the belt. You think of as at least I do. But that changes for every batter. Obviously, as you see the pictures of the most extreme when you see Jose Altuve standing next to oh my God, Yankees, Aaron Judge.
Aaron Judge, yeah.
Thanks for helping me there. um, if they were playing in the same game, they would have the exact same strike zone, which seems absurd to me. Like how is that possible? That like I believe what they're doing is they it changes every game. Like I've seen multiple games. I've seen a strike zone that it looks like like an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, like a portrait. It's
Yeah.
tall and narrow. The next game, the strike zone was wide and short, like you turned it to a landscape, and that was based on the average height of, I guess, the players that on the rosters that day for both teams. That just seems absurd to me. How could this strike zone not be malleable enough where it changes for every batter? They just measure, they see the crook of the knee, and they see where his letters or whatever they determine the top of the strike zone is. It should change for every batter. So it's absurd the way they're doing it. I hope that this experiment at least is pointing out how absurd it is. That strike zone is just not calibrated for every single player. It's like an average apparently. So I don't know. Have you seen any of that? The same things I'm seeing?
Yeah, I mean the graphics I've seen though have been very similar, like in the Sox game and in that and in the opening day game, the opening spring training game.
Yeah.
Where it's like it was like a pinkish square and they showed the ball where it hit, which it kind of reminded me of it did a little bit remind me of like the box that is normally up on the screen, but it didn't have like it wasn't as defined as it, but
Yeah.
the same kind of graphic was up when the White Sox did it. So I don't know if is it being left up to like local
No, it is
graphics
not.
departments?
That's another issue. It is definitely not. This is automated by Major League Baseball, and it's going to have to be. They're going to have to. It's called the Hawkeye system, which
Yeah,
you
that's
and I
they
were
use in
joking.
tennis. Yeah.
Yeah, we were joking back and forth. That actually, you're right. They use it in tennis. They also use it in NASCAR for things. I was joking, but I also wasn't joking. It is the Hawkeye system that is doing this, which is very different than ESPN's K Zone or whatever your local affiliate. However, they determine it. Their strike zones have nothing to do with this automated system, and that might be very frustrating when they really implement this, if and if those aren't calibrated to the same system, because your TV is telling you one thing, but then the automated ball strike system is telling you something totally different. So that's something else they're going to have to work out. But I can't believe they're not going to calibrate it for every single batter as they come up, because literally the way the strike zone has to be defined is that player's knees to their chest, not some average, or it can't be the same all game long, can't be the same all season long for every single player. It's got to be that player. So
I mean,
I
I
thought
would just throw strikes at Tuve about head height. That's
you'd
probably
have
right
no
in the strike
chance.
zone. You had no chance. 3 pitches. And then I'd argue each one when the ump calls it a ball. I'd be like, I don't know, check the video, buddy.
Well, that's what I do like about it, the challenge system. Instead of every single, if it was every single pitch, it'd be infuriating, I think, where you'd see those inconsistencies, where at least this would be limited. And if the ump keeps getting it wrong, at least there's some way for the aggrieved team to get justice and challenge it and get the right call made. So that part I really like, at least the philosophy. The execution has a long ways to go to be right. So I think if this is the best they could do after several years in the minor leagues, and we're now seeing it in the majors, they've got a long ways to go still to implement.
So is it the same system in the minors?
This is the exact same system they've been using in at least AAA. They've been testing this. The way I've heard it described is AAA has had it for every single game for at least the last year. Right now, for the last several years, they do 6-game series. The first 3 games of the series are total ABS. The umpire is getting a signal in their ear or whatever to whether to call it a ball or a strike. Then the last 3 games of the series are this challenge system that we're seeing. I think what they've determined is why they're implementing this in spring training, the challenge system, is because the total ABS system is a disaster. It's just like it just doesn't look right, and I'm sure the umpires don't like it. Being told what to call. It seems overwrought and fraught with potential issues. So that's why I think the challenge system has graduated from AAA to the majors, at least in spring training. So it's our
Yeah,
best hope at this point, but
I
it's got a
think you
ways to
def
go.
I think you definitely start that way. I know, like, you know nothing about tennis, and I know nothing about NASCAR, which is
Yeah, it's perfect.
what our jokes were back and forth on our texting. But tennis is they had so many these line judges make so many missed calls that
I
they've
have,
basically moved
yeah.
completely to ball hawk, except for like the French Open and Wimbledon. But those are gonna, by next year, I think there won't be any human line judges. They have a recorded voice that calls them out.
Oh, do you like, as a viewer, do you like the automated system for
I
tennis?
do. It's not. It does have flaws though. Like, it'll
Okay.
call something out, and occasionally they will replay it, and it'll actually be in,
The, the,
and
the
it takes it.
huge the huge difference for tennis, at least compared to baseball, you have finite lines. Those
Yeah, it's
lines
not
do not
dimensional.
move. Yeah. Where the upper and lower part of the strike zone is not finite for every batter. It's different. So
Exactly.
so if you can't even get it 100% correct in tennis, where things aren't changing, there's no dynamics to it. It's a fucking line. And I have seen the graphics. I don't know how I've seen it because I don't watch tennis, but it is very precise. It shows you here the ball hit this part. I think it shows a shadow
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
on it. So I'm familiar with it, but I'm kind of shocked to hear that it's not 100% accurate, even with the finite dimensions. So I could also see why tennis needs it more than anything, because the ball's going 140 miles an hour at times. So
Yeah. Yeah.
how could a
Crazy.
lines person necessarily see exactly what's going on?
So,
That's
especially
fascinating.
especially those guys keep those fucking jobs forever. Like, the umpires are way too fucking old to be out there calling balls in and out. They can probably barely see.
Yeah, and the good ones are fucking gambling on games and getting kicked out of
Right.
the league. So Jesus Christ, as we discussed last week. So
And as
well,
always, brilliant, because speaking of getting kicked out, Smitty,
speaking.
ESPN
Oh, I see.
is
I
kicking
didn't
out
follow.
MLB after
I didn't,
35 years.
sorry, I didn't follow your segue right there. Yes, ESPN and Major League Baseball have decided to get divorced after 35 years. 1990 was the first year of at least Sunday Night Baseball. I don't know
Yeah.
what else they had at that time, but
Oh,
I
the
remember
good old
1990.
days. The
You and
good
I
old
remember.
days.
Yeah,
Joe
I was still in.
Morgan, and
Was it John
John
Miller?
John Miller. Oh my
Were
God.
they were the original crew?
Yeah. I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure,
they were there for
because
20 years probably.
the ABC crew before it moved to ESPN used to be L. Michaels, and
Oh wow.
I think
That was back in the.
Cosell may
Oh,
have
you know
done it
what?
a little bit
I
too.
know Al Michaels was involved because you hear the famous '89 World Series earthquake. He's on the air when the earthquake hits in San Francisco.
Right.
So this would have been a year after that. That's amazing. That really puts it in perspective how fucking long they've been in bed together.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly, exactly. As media conglomerates got consumed, they got even more incestual with the relationship. But
Yeah. So it's interesting how this has played out. It has come to be known that Major League Baseball opted out of their deal, while Rob Manfred wants you to believe that Major League Baseball didn't like ESPN anymore because they weren't giving them enough coverage. It just played out like a junior high romance that fell apart the way Manfred played it. You didn't break up with me. I broke up with you.
no, you
Um,
didn't.
the obvious parts of this is that Rob Manfred himself and the deals that Major League Baseball have made subsequently have diminished the value of their own product and have caused this divorce. If you think about it, ESPN has been paying $550 million a year, scheduled to for the next 3 years. They are finishing that deal after this year, so Major League Baseball is missing out on $1.1 billion over the next 2 years after this. mainly because Rob Manfred has been selling off pieces of their media rights deal for pennies on the dollar. And not only are they pissing off their own fans by forcing us to get like Apple TV Plus to get Friday night games or to get the ridiculous Roku
Oh God,
Sunday brunch games at like 10 or 11 a.m. Um,
were those
there's
Peacock too? Didn't they have some on Peacock like that?
Yeah, I don't have the stats on that. I do know that Apple paid $85 million is all for per year for their Friday night games, which ends up being like 30 games maybe, I
The
think.
coverage is shit too.
Yeah, I've never been a fan. I have seen a couple of the games. I also am annoyed, and most fans are, that you have to pay for another streaming platform, even though I am a MLB at Bat subscriber to get all the games, which definitely has a heavy asterisk after that because I don't get all the games for the $150 I pay per year because I also have to subscribe to these other services. I forget the amount that they got from. Oh, Roku is only $10 million per year for the one Sun. I think they don't do the full season. It's like
No, they
a
don't.
select number of maybe 15 games. But ESPN is looking at it and like, why are we paying $550 million to have Sunday Night Baseball and a couple other games? And granted, yeah, playoff rights. They do the first couple rounds of the playoffs. Um, but it's just it feels like these nickel and dime deals that Manfred's been pulling off with Roku and Apple TV have diminished the value of the product. And it's like, why would we keep doing this? I have seen interesting comments from owners. I forget the funniest comment was they're just so overconfident about this that they're going to be able to sell what ESPN has just given up for much more money. They were calling it a non-issue. It's like, oh, no big deal. We don't give a fuck about ESPN. But granted, ESPN has kind of lost its luster over the years. I used to be, I mean, Christ, throughout the 90s, you'd have it on ESPN. You'd have your TV on ESPN all day long. You'd want to watch SportsCenter in the morning. It would have baseball coverage all the time. They had all the great sports. I don't find myself watching ESPN nearly as much as I used to. I don't know if you do, but ESPN is I think is taking a step back. And granted, they've also kind of stepped back their baseball coverage in favor of the NBA and NFL because that's what most people want to hear. There's more NFL fans and NBA fans apparently than baseball fans. That doesn't do me any good because I don't give a fuck about the NBA, and I've get plenty of NFL news throughout the fall. I don't need it year round. So it's going to be interesting to see where baseball goes with this. I mean, they do have a huge opportunity now with all this inventory that they could sell to Amazon Prime. That might be one place they go. They could go to Netflix, who's dying to get deeper into live sports coverage. I don't know. Do you have any theories about what they might do next?
They could walk right over to Fox. I mean, it seems like a no-brainer. I
I
think
think
this is
Fox is paying $700 million a year for their coverage, which also includes the World Series. So,
I think ESPN's going to regret this. And I heard a rumor that
mm.
ESPN is acting like this because they are losing money on the NBA contract they signed because the NBA
Oh,
is in a all-time low of entertainment value in regards to people not.
can't be all time low because the '70s were
Yeah,
the
not
game
at all.
almost
I
died.
mean,
But
in recent years, it's at a
okay, yeah,
low. It's at a
because of three
low
pointers and nothing else.
of people are it's just not entertaining enough for fans at this point.
I don't
And
watch the NBA. I don't know. You probably watch a little more Bulls than I've watched Pistons over years, but I I
not
know what
much, but yeah.
I at least I'm aware of what's happened. The NBA's popularity had skyrocketed, um, but the game has changed because the math took over, where it's just more
Right.
efficient to take 3 pointers than it is anything else. So it just became a 3 point shooting contest, which I could see how their market would get annoyed with that eventually. So that's interesting. I hadn't heard that they're losing the value that this decision with Major League Baseball would be driven by their what they're not getting from the NBA.
Yeah, so I if you take that and then you got this as MLB also could look at this as the Sunday night baseball move to the MLB network. I mean, that's a lot of money that they just get to fucking keep with the amount
Well,
of advertising they'll be able
they
to
get
sell.
advertising, but they don't get a separate entity just giving them millions and billions of dollars just off the bat just for the privilege of hosting it. So that's kind of what the Cubs in a smaller scale have run into, where they don't have a cable deal; they have their own TV network. Well, that's all fine and good if they're raking in tons of advertising dollars, but they're not getting paid. They're not just getting a check every year from their cable provider partner. So it's kind of a mixed bag in that regard. Ironically enough, the Cubs marquee network is not on local Comcast once again as of today. They might work out a deal before opening day, but they're running into the same problems. Same with Chicago Sports Network, that is not on Xfinity again. So it's getting there. I feel like even if baseball, Major League Baseball gets a better deal out of this, or somehow we will be able to define this. If they get less than $550 million a year than they were getting from ESPN, from whoever they sell this, or if they sell this in pieces to, we will know there's a winner and loser in this. I feel like they're losing no matter what, because they're pissing off their fans, mainly because they're not going to be on cable, most likely. There are fewer and fewer people that have cable, but it's becoming harder and harder to consume their product. You have to sign up for more and more services. The way they solve this, at least for me and for hardcore baseball users like us, is all the games need to be part of their MLB at bat package. Like they've said all along, get all the games for $150. So
Right.
I don't give a fuck if it's on ESPN. I don't give a fuck if it's on Roku or anywhere else. I paid up front to have all the games. So just give me all the games. So if that's where this ends up, then it's a win for the fans at least. But I haven't heard any speculation that they're actually going to do the right thing by the hardcore fans. I don't know if you have heard anything about
No,
that either.
no. I haven't heard anything like that. But when you look at MLB, they're not really any different than what the NFL's done too. They're on Fox, they're on CBS, they have Netflix games, they have Prime games. So they've sold
Yeah.
off all their pieces too, and they only are doing it for 17 weeks. So there's a lot more baseball to be able to consume than there is of football.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm not defending Manfred, but I'm also like in their position. But I'm defending baseball's position in that they keep making more money every year, so there must be a demand for the product that is increasing. So
Yeah, record profits again.
yes,
12.1 billion dollars this year,
yeah. So
and yet payrolls 22 major league payrolls have gone down this offseason compared to last year.
here's one of
But they're
them right
making
here.
yeah, they're making record profits, and yet they're spending less money.
Yeah, well, that's how you make record profits. You spend less money and just keep bringing the dollars in. But
Well, I'm sorry, yeah, record revenues, let alone
yeah,
profits. So
yeah. So
I don't know. I
anyway,
can't take Major League Baseball side, but I appreciate your efforts to see both sides of it.
yeah, I again, I think ESPN. I mean, I'm curious to see what's going to be on.
Yeah.
Nothing I'm going to watch on Sunday night.
Well, that deal does continue through the end of this year, so we do have
No,
Sunday Night
I know
Baseball.
that. Yeah, I know
Yeah,
that. But I'm just
just want to
saying
make sure
after
that.
that,
Yeah. Well,
USFL.
2020,
I don't know.
2020, yeah, 2026. We'll see where that goes, and we'll see if we even have a 2027 season. So
Yeah, maybe that's why. Maybe that's why they pulled out
that
to
is definitely
wait.
why. That's definitely why all this is happening. All the business side of baseball is kind of nervously looking at 2027. Well, I do not want to end this podcast or any podcast going forward talking about 2027 and impending labor doom. So let's finish this show with a ridiculous aesthetics. Aesthetics is typically talking about the baseball uniforms, new logos, stuff like that. We've got a very different aesthetics this week, as it does involve the look of baseball, at least, but specifically the New York Yankees and their facial hair policy. That was kind of the talk of spring training for the first week there. The Yankees, ever since I believe it started in the 70s with when George Steinbrenner took over, they implemented a no facial hair policy, with the curious exemption of mustaches,
That's
which were
right.
a pretty normal thing in the 70s. They've since lost favor, although they are coming back in a big way with the hipster culture. It's not unusual to see mustaches anymore as it used to be. But all that time, all these years from the mid 70s on, you could not have a beard if you were a New York Yankee. Uh, the most famous example I can think of is like free agents moving to the Yankees and drastically changing the look by doing so. It's Johnny Damon, famously from the idiot 2004 Red Sox, with his long hair and giant beard. He eventually signed with the Yankees and had to shave it all off and just look like a completely different person. I've seen over the years where, more recently, where like I think Mark Teixeira grew a mustache just because he could, just to be able to grow something. I just like that it's a mustache. Like it could be anything. Like you used to be a soul patch guy, weren't you? Didn't you have a soul patch back
I
in the
was
day?
big in the soul patch. That's
I
about all
think
I could grow back then.
that'd be funny if that's what George was into at that time back in the 70s. If you could just the Yankees could only grow a soul patch.
That would be sweet. That would have been sweet.
Apparently, though, they finally learned that it's kind of a detriment to some free agents and their thought and their decision making. Like if their identity is based on their beards or goatees or long hair or whatever it is, which we see that everywhere in baseball. They might not want to go to the Yankees. And apparently, one of their new free agents almost didn't go to the Yankees because he didn't want to shave off his beard. And they've caved to the pressure, the cultural pressure. Finally, now you can have a quote unquote well groomed beard if you are a New York Yankee. They're loosening that policy. You can go beyond a mustache to a well groomed beard. And I'm curious how a well groomed beard is going to be defined. You've been bearded for
Hmm.
quite some time. I am growing out my beard to some levels of success, or not so much, over the last couple weeks, having nothing to do with this Yankees policy. But
Sure, sure.
um, I don't know that I would consider my beard or your beard well groomed. Do you think these would be up to Yankee standards? Would we have to get these cleaned up to even have
Uh,
this amount of facial hair?
yeah, I am due to clean up mine. I do like a 2 week cycle
Okay.
of grooming my beard. I feel like if it was on the Yankees though, I'd be doing it on a weekly basis.
Well,
Is
I
my
think
guess.
every major league team has a on-site barber, like just in the clubhouse. You can get a shave every day if you want. So that probably wouldn't be hard to do. I would love that if you could just have a professional trim me up every day if I needed to. Um, so I don't think that'll be the issue. But I like the idea that someone is going to have to be the arbiter of what is well groomed. Like if someone is like Hal Steinbrenner, who did finally change this policy of his father's, is he gonna like have you stand before him and let him look at your beard to determine whether it is well groomed enough or not? It's just I find that transaction, however that's going to play out, to be rather awkward and hilarious.
Maybe they'll use like a facial recognition type of software that has a well groomed beard
Yeah,
programmed into it, and
they'll have like an
as
ABS
it's
system. If it
yeah,
comes outside of their parameters, you get a you get
yeah,
you can challenge it, and they will say you are wrong. You'll get buzzed.
go to the Baba.
Yeah. Go talk to Bill, the barber. Yeah, I just it was a lot of talk of that last week. I thought it was hilarious. Thought it was perfect for our ridiculous aesthetics segment. Just taking it a little bit different direction, but it's definitely something about the look of baseball that like find fascinating to talk about. So
After all these years, they finally give in.
yeah, yeah, it's interesting that it's just happening now. Like I mean, the idea that they allowed mustaches for so long, even though nobody wanted a mustache for 30 years. And then to find, I mean, everyone's bearded basically. We should find a study, or maybe I'll do a informal study, like the percentages of beards across baseball. Would you put that at like 80%? Like of all major league players, there are a ton of beards in baseball.
Yeah, and there's a lot of like obnoxious beards.
There
Like,
can be a lot, but I would say they're most are I would consider well groomed. But just the percentage of beards is massive. I mean, it seems much larger than it's ever been. So maybe that's the Yankees are finally caving to just the numbers. Like there's so many potential free agents. There's so many that might be very particular to their beards that they wouldn't go to the Yankees if they had to shave it off, which seems absurd, but that is happening apparently.
Huh. I wouldn't shave it off for the Yankees.
Fuck the Yankees. Well, with that, unless there's anything I forgot or anything you wanted to bring up here, I think we can wrap up this episode 159. We will be back potentially next week.
Yeah, I think so.
Do we need to do our Nostradamus predictions before the Cubs series? Cubs Dodgers.
Well, I could, I don't think anything's going to happen between now and the start of the season to make my predictions go any differently. So it'll just depend on my mood no matter what. So
it's one of our favorite shows of the year, doing our Nostradamus predictions.
We could do a Thirsty Thursday Nostradamus where we really dial up the alcohol and just let it fly next week.
I'm up for that. I'm always up for that. So yeah, we'll put that together. I'm sure there'll be plenty to talk about regardless of our stupid predictions, but we'll have content. And in 2 weeks, we'll have Cubs content to talk about. We'll have a real game to talk about. We'll see how many actual Cubs show up to that. So in the meantime, you can find this podcast anywhere you'd like to find a podcast. You can find us on social media at Major League A-Holes. You can find us on YouTube. Check out our burgeoning YouTube page. We've got 306 subscribers, I think, right now. I'm going to try to get to 400 before the end of this season. So check us out on YouTube. Hit the like, hit the subscribe button. Check that all out. And I think with that, we can declare this podcast is over. Peace.
Word Hole Media.